Welcome to Owner Insights, the podcast that uncovers stories about businesses and their owners. I'm James Orchard, Managing Director of the Crew Harris Orchard. In each episode, I sit down with a business owner to hear their stories. We discuss things like why they started their business, what was their motivation, the mistakes they've made, the lessons they've learned, keys to growth, and what they do differently. These aren't how-to guides or do-as-I-say tips, just real conversations between two business people. Join us as we explore what it takes to become a truly great business. Stephen Evans, welcome to Owner Insights.
Thank you, James.
I'm really looking forward to this chat today because your business is something that I would call very innovative, but has nothing really to do with technology. People are obsessed with technology being innovative, but to me, your business, known as Footsteps, is a really interesting model. So just for those listening, can you tell us about Footsteps? What does it do? And how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, it is a when people ask what you do and you tell them that you're a dancing economist, they say, please explain further.
Yeah, so, well, please do.
Yeah. Well, I've got an economics degree, but my passion, I suppose, was competitive ballroom dancing. So I was a competitive ballroom dancer for close to 25 years. And all the jobs, which weren't many, that I had with my degree really didn't interest me, and I was trapped in a bit of a bubble with my dancing career, and that's type of all I really would focus on. So when that career came to an end, just after having children, we had my wife and I had a dance studio here on North Terrace where we type of passed our craft on to other competitive couples in that field, and I remember. So
sorry, you taught them how to dance, and they paid you for that.
Correct, yeah. So we type of followed the line of every other professional dancer in our field, and that was you competed as an amateur, you turned professional, you competed as a professional, you retired, and then you opened a studio and you continue to teach and pass on your craft,
right?
As well as judge at competitions and things like that. So I think probably 2 or 3 years into that chapter of the journey, I remember turning to my wife one night and saying, I don't think I can do this for the rest of my life. It's there were a number of impediments for me that were going to limit what we could do as adults, and that included owning a house as number one, having children. The income was like a roller coaster.
So sorry, how old are you at this point?
It would have been 25.
Okay, yeah. And you're married to
Yep,
Fiona.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and you're earning how much money teaching?
I reckon teaching we were earning probably $500 each a week.
Okay.
Which back in the time we were thinking, this is okay, we can build this and grow it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a lot of money, but we were doing something that we loved doing.
Yeah, sure.
And we were getting paid for it, which was fantastic. We had other jobs as well, so that we would then come to the studio after those jobs and teach at night time, teach on weekends. And yeah, as I mentioned before, there was one day where I just went, I just don't think I can do this for the rest of my life. So, but we sat down and we needed type of a bit of a plan to work out where we were going with the dancing. And so one of the criteria that we had was that we wanted daytime work, not nighttime work. I thought that would be more conducive to having a family one day.
Yeah.
And we wanted our income to be pretty stable rather than up and down. And we felt as dance teachers in our field of dancing anyway, that you ended up being more like social workers half the time than you were a dance teacher, hearing about people's problems and what was going on between the couples and all that type of stuff. So, which didn't really float my boat either. So anyway, so we came up with this concept of approaching schools. It was daytime work. There were big numbers of kids in each school. They were all in one location. And so we sat down and we wrote letters to a number of schools. This is now 30 years ago, so next year we're 30 years old. And so the first school that ever picked us up was Elizabeth East Primary School.
Yep.
And we're a client there still to this day. And I think St Ignatius was the next school that picked us up. Anyway, we type of stumbled upon a bit of a niche that we really didn't know existed, to be perfectly honest, and that was that most PE teachers and other teachers felt really uncomfortable about delivering dance as a part of curriculum. So they saw that we could come in and do it really well, and quite concisely within a school term, and handballed the job to us. So we were on our own, I think, for probably the first 6 or 7 years. It was just the two of us, but we were able to give up our other jobs and just focus wholly and solely on this. And we were pretty much all teaching full time, within 12 months of starting.
So within 12 months, how many schools did you have?
I'd guesstimate we probably had between back then 30 and 50 schools, something like
within
that.
12 months.
Within 12 months, yeah. So it was this niche that we fell upon, and it type of timed really well. There was in South Australia at the time, there was a state government fund that came out called Active for Life, and it was $25 per student for the teachers to spend on things that were active in terms of lifestyle. And I think because ours had a point of difference, so it wasn't footy, it wasn't cricket, it wasn't soccer, it wasn't those traditional type of sports, that teachers and principals at schools looked at and went, wow, I think this could be really good for the kids. Got great social interaction, great coordination skills, locomotor, non-locomotor skills, communication skills. So it's a really great vehicle for covering so many different things for the kids. So that type of coincided, say, 12 months after we started, and then we had to start employing because we had just a heap of schools ringing us going, we've got this money, we want to use it, we want to use it on you. And so then we delved into the sometimes unenviable task of dealing with other human beings in terms of staff and training and supporting staff. That was a real learning curve in itself. So within a year, you've got 30 to 50 schools. So can I just dwell on that for a minute? You weren't sure this was going to work, and it went bananas in 12 months. You must have had some sort of inkling that there would be an interest. I mean, as someone who's chased leather around all his life, the concept of a PE teacher getting into dance doesn't really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. No, and they still it's still to this day being delivered in the curriculum as a part of the PE curriculum. So it's but PE teachers just feel really uncomfortable delivering it because most of them have come from traditional sporting backgrounds, being ball sports.
But why does a PE teacher think that dance is as good, if not better, than traditional sports?
I'm not sure they think of it being any better or less better. I think that they have to, number one, they have to cover it as a part of the curriculum, so they've got to tick off on it. I think that they. I think there's a real interest in the arts and anything that's a bit different, and so whether you're a PE teacher or an accountant, when someone says, "What do you do for a job?" and you go, "I own a dance company," they go, "Wow, that's you don't hear that very often." And so there's a general interest from the start about what we do, and what started off as a really fun thing to do for the kids. And loosely ticking off on curriculum back then, now is quite an educational, has quite an educational depth and reporting around it as well from our perspective.
And would I be right in saying that you stumbled across a time when not being competitive in schools resonated?
I think so. I think the other bit that really went well was that the kids that really excel at what we do are the kids that generally tend to be a handful in the classroom, because they're kinesthetic learners. So they learn by movement. They don't learn by sitting still. And if I think back to not that I was in trouble a lot at school, but if I think back to myself as a kid, I was exactly the same. I couldn't sit still for more than 5 seconds, and it was still to this day, very similar. So I think that's what appealed to me about it as well as a kid, subconsciously. And so when we're in a classroom and we're pointing out little Johnny who their teacher's standing back against a wall, going, "My God, I can't this kid's the bane of my life in the classroom," but in your classroom, he's
loving it.
He's loving it, and he's clearly doing an amazing job at it. And you keep positively reinforcing him about that. So I think that bit really is a real appeal for the teachers. Trying to create a safety net. I think definitely the non-competitive thing was part of it though as well, which is quite strange because the type of dance that my background is ultra competitive. So it's you type of don't survive unless you've got that ultra competitive streak. So, but we haven't translated that into this program.
No.
We're after, I suppose, what we're trying to do is give kids a really positive experience with dance and drama now, and try and capture or safety net those kids that sometimes wouldn't have the opportunity to do this stuff outside of school, for a number of reasons.
So you've stumbled across this concept which you've found a market for really quickly. Now you need to scale and you need to grow. So you alluded to the fact that you had to employ people. Talk us through how that all went.
I identified probably two or three really big challenges over Footsteps' timeline, if you want to call it that. Definitely the first one was employing staff and just learning all of the procedures and aspects around that, having to pass on 25 years of knowledge to someone who just doesn't have that knowledge, but they've maybe got some type of dance background, and then trying to define and mark down a criteria for a job description and employment where you're just not looking at those things to begin with, I don't think, when you start out.
Were you employing dance teachers or were you employing administrative staff?
No. So we only had one person at the time in administration, and she actually happened to be our nanny, the nanny of our children when we both went back to work, or when Fiona came back to work as well. And so we discovered that, and she was amazing with our children, and we discovered that she had office skills as well. So as the kids started to go off to school, we then approached her to come and work in our office, which she did, and was with us for I think it's like 12 to 15 years, something like that. But in terms of instructors, they were the majority of what we were employing and training.
So how many of those did you get, and what was the sort of growth trajectory?
I think we had, like, just in South Australia initially, we would have ended up with somewhere between 5 to 7 instructors. Before we decided to expand into Sydney.
And they all knew how to dance?
They all had dance backgrounds. So most of them though had like a tap jazz ballet type of background, your traditional type of studio background. They weren't ballroom dancers. So that's when the program then started to evolve from being just ballroom dancing to other forms of dance, so hip hop, cultural, all other types, lyrical, other types of forms as well, because we then could tap into another source of knowledge, which were these people that we're employing and their backgrounds.
So 30 to 50 schools, 7 staff, admin. Were you making money by this time?
We were not a lot, but we were covering costs, and there was a little bit of profit left in there, which enabled us to buy our first home. We were making money, and we've type of self-funded all the way through. We've never borrowed money to expand. So the balance, and I think that's where my degree comes into it. The balance sheet's always been hugely important to me, and making sure that it's solid. So
solid means no debt to you.
Yeah, no debt. Yeah, exactly. And so when we've decided to open up another site, we've used our own cash to do that. So
So what do you mean open up a new site?
So if we decided to say expand into Sydney or into New Zealand or into America,
Okay, gee whiz, we've jumped forward here. So we've started at Elizabeth East Primary. Now we're in New Zealand.
Yeah, so we've been in New Zealand for 10 years.
Just talk us through that bit.
Sure. Yeah, so the timeline of the expansion was initially Sydney, and we chose Sydney because I'd lived there previously with my dancing career. So I knew it pretty geographically well, but we actually started the concept out as a franchise model. So we built like a franchise manual, and I think we got a lot of things right, except for the one fundamental thing that dancers don't have any money. So
right.
So when we came,
so they don't have enough money to come and buy a franchise.
Correct. So when we went to advertise in newspapers and so forth, we had a heap of inquiry, but none of them could afford to purchase it. And at the time, we weren't in a position to try and self-fund them into it. So so what was once a franchise manual became a standard operating procedures manual, almost is the way that I looked at it. Yeah. And so we took one of our instructors that we had here 20 something years ago now, who is now our CEO, Demetra, and we, her and her husband now husband, who's a chef, they moved to Sydney for us to open up Sydney. And then I was probably regularly travelling up there every couple of weeks and just trying to grow it and expand it and pretty much will replicate the product that we had here, but there.
So was there any competition in Sydney?
No, none. So we were the first of this type into the market in both Australia and New Zealand.
Okay, so how quickly were you able to grow in Sydney? Was it a similar story?
It was quite funny actually. We found it so easy to pick up clients there compared to Adelaide, which when we're talking markets, you hear about that quite a lot. Adelaide being quite a conservative market. If companies want to trial products, a lot of the time they're coming to Adelaide because it's a tough one to get them off in. And I don't think this was any different. I think after everything that we'd learnt in 10 years here, I think it really paved the way to making it a lot easier in Sydney. And within a relatively short distance of time, we had quite a few schools that were on board. And I think we had 3 or 4 staff within a couple of years. And it just type of grew from there.
So you're now in Adelaide, Sydney.
Yep.
And okay, let's skip forward now.
Yep.
So where are you now?
So we're national.
So you're in every state? Yeah.
Yep. We're in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Both North and South Island.
Yeah.
And we're in California.
Yeah.
We've got on COVID. The silver lining for COVID for us was was our online type of programming. So
you're teaching dance online.
Yeah, it's all pre-recorded. So basically, we've mimicked the face-to-face program and recorded it, and schools are using it. Remote schools are using it that we would have never have gone to before, where there are more chickens than kids.
Yeah.
And it's not viable for us to go, and it's not viable for them to pay what we would need to go.
Yeah.
So we're now able to reach those kids that we wouldn't be able to reach normally.
Okay. Yeah.
The American market is, or the California market particularly, is all about more so professional development for teachers. So they would be, I would hazard to say that they're probably 20 to 30 years behind us in terms of their education system and what's being delivered. So dance from an elementary school point of view has only just started being delivered in the US, and the kids normally didn't get a taste of that until middle school and high school.
Okay.
So we've type of tapped into a market there, along with some state funding that's come up in the last couple of years, that's enabled us to get a fair bit of inquiry, which we're growing at the moment.
Yeah.
And so that'll be a growth market, I think, for me. We'll see my days out, I would have thought.
So you've gone to California. You're doing it online. Have you got staff in California?
No, none. No,
okay.
So it's all online.
So it's all online.
Yeah.
And how's it going?
It's going really well. So we've picked up, we recently picked up a district called Saugus, which is in just out of Santa Clarita in California. So that's 27 schools that we're working with. And so they're able to use that program. It's a subscription-based model. They're able to use that program with their teachers and their students over 12 months. And we then have built a new program every 12 months. So it's a new program next year. I've got 3 Zooms tomorrow with 2 counties, of which there are 25 districts in each county that are looking, and these are arts leads that are in these counties that are looking to professionally develop their arts leaders in their districts to be able to deliver dance in schools. So yeah, the interest has been really good.
So your Zoom calls tomorrow, they'd be sales calls, not teaching calls.
Sales calls,
yeah.
Correct.
So you're not doing any dance teaching anymore.
Very rarely do I get to put the shoes back on. Every now and then I do.
Yeah.
So I taught at CBC along with SAC probably a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Just keep your eye in.
Year 10 students, yeah. I think it's more so just how are staffing levels and how's demand. If we have a school ring up at the last minute, rather than lose the revenue, we'll take it. So I'll normally get a phone call from the people that do all that stuff and go, "Can you help us out on this day?" I went, "Sure." Unless I've got something on, I'm away. Or
So you got a couple of sales calls tomorrow in California. You've all around Australia. You're in New Zealand. You've broken into the US market. The US market's quite big. I'm guessing.
Very big. Yep.
Where could this go?
I don't know. I think the online programming has allowed us to leverage this via email and newsletter versus having to go site to site and talk to principals or the powers that be that make the decisions around what we do. I don't know. I think adding value to the business is in terms of people is one of my goals going forward, so that they can make that leveraging happen over time. It's a real schools are a real relationship-based type of market, though. So the whole business has really been based on relationships. So a lot of the educational partnerships that we have with associations, where you're at their conferences and you're able to talk to them about what we do. From a curriculum perspective and getting to know those people outside of their classroom or outside of their school, where they can actually let their hair down and be who they are. That's really important to us, and that's been a real growth that's allowed us to grow those relationships. So that'll continue to happen, which is where the American market started for us, dealing with a region over there just outside of Pasadena where we built some relationships over pre-COVID, probably 5 or 6 years. So I suppose that the world's the limit in terms of.
So you could go to America, and like base yourself over there, go to 1,000 teaching conferences, and potentially expand all over America. Yeah,
if I've got no desire to go and live in America, but yes, certainly if we had someone that did, then we could do that. So I've got to go to a conference there next year in March. The conferences all look very similar wherever you go to them. And they're all there to professionally develop, and as sponsors or as vendors, as they call them in America, we get to flog our product to them or our service to them, and there's always been a lot of there's always been a lot of interest around what we do, because it's just one of those, dance and drama are just two of those subjects that teachers steer away from, So, and in a lot of cases, even if they do try and deliver themselves, they deliver really poorly. So principals are really keen to, I suppose, give kids the best possible experience they can, and so that's why they outsource that type of stuff to us.
So really, you have an unlimited market growth potential.
Yeah, I think so.
You would think. Well, sorry, it's limited only by your current structures.
Yes. Yeah, if we decided to invest some more money and plonk someone somewhere in another country, then to grow, then we could certainly do that. Yeah, definitely.
Or you might have someone who's listening to this who rings you up and says, "How about I solve your US problem for you?"
Correct.
Yeah.
And some type of joint venture. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. If anyone's listening. Do you think the franchise failure in Sydney enabled you to achieve the consistency around the world that you've now got?
I think in terms of the developing standard operating procedures and all those types of things from that initial process, for sure. Yeah, definitely formed part of.
Because one of the problems with franchising is that as good as your manuals might be, you've still got to make sure the Big Mac tastes the same.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and I think one of the other things that when it eventually didn't work out that we would take that path, one of the things that I've seen with a lot of franchises is if that franchisee is not particularly doing what you want them to do all the time, it's very difficult to get rid of them, or to replace them. So with a franchise agreement in place, so I liked the idea of keeping it all under one roof, and being able to have people responsible for for certain areas that they then drove. Yeah.
So the business obviously is very successful now. You've got huge prospects. What's gone wrong?
Yeah, a few things over the Sydney went wrong initially. So Sydney, we got the financial model all wrong in terms of the initial turnover that I thought we would need to stay afloat for the first 12 months. And so Adelaide was bleeding a fair bit of money into it even after the first 12 months. And so we had to effectively go up there and lose a few staff and some cost to then get that model right. I think that was a really big learning curve for us, and that type of then changed the model for expansion going forward thereafter. So effectively, before we would even go into another site, I almost made sure that we had double the amount of revenue to start there before we even had anyone on the ground.
Okay.
So which effectively meant that we started off trading with the profit straight away. So and it wasn't pulling on any other site. Or any other site's cash flow. So that then. That then meant that was Sydney was we were redrawing on the mortgage. We were just to pay wages. It was a
testing time.
It was a real testing time. Other bits and pieces. The New Zealand expansion was that was challenging. We had to put someone over there for 6 months initially, which was a big cost in terms of which we hadn't had to do before in terms of accommodation and motor vehicle and all those type of upfront expenses.
But did you feel like because you'd done Sydney and you'd learned from that you were more confident New Zealand was going to work out?
I think where New Zealand originally came from was a conference that we do. It only just happened this year actually. It's a conference called the Trans-Tasman Conference. So it's where all the so this year it was in Christchurch. At the time when we first expanded in New Zealand, it was in Melbourne, and it rotates every 4 years between Australia and New Zealand as to where it is. But we had a heap of Kiwi principals come up to us at our stall. And express interest and say, well, we've got nothing like this back where we are and at home, and would you be interested in coming over? So we set up a heap of trial lessons over a number of weeks. I think we had about a month's worth of trial lessons there, and which we were sending an instructor over for, and I think more than half of those converted into programs for the following year.
Jeez, what a hit rate.
Yeah, so we knew there was as soon as that happened, I type of pulled the trigger on it, went, right, let's get someone there and let's start, and then we followed the same process that we did in every other site, really, which was to build relationships with educational type of associations and start to build that side of the business and salesperson in place so
was this growth a plan or did it evolve?
I'm not sure if it was so much of a plan as it was maybe just satisfying my dysfunctional nature of getting of just not feeling too comfortable for too long. So one of the things that I suppose one of the things that stimulates me is a challenge, and I find that if I'm doing the same, if I might be able to do the same thing really well and on automatic pilot for a long time, but I know when I'm feeling that way that I've got to find something new. And so a lot of the expansion I feel has come from type of that feeling of, okay, we've type of, not say conquered is the word, but we've got that in place now. We've got all the pieces of the puzzle that we need in it, and it seems to be flowing quite nicely.
Yeah.
Let's now, what have we learnt from it? And now let's move on to the next one.
So if you are constantly having ants in your pants and needing to satisfy that, when do you get satisfied? How do you get satisfaction?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of my satisfaction that I've discovered over the years has come from other people and watching them grow. So Demetra is an example, who started off as an instructor for us and is now the CEO of the business. Watching her professionally develop and learn her craft around not only what happens in the classroom, but what happens with staff and relationships and people, and has been hugely satisfying for me. I'm just not sure. I like to call it I'm an active relaxer. So it's so I'm not sitting around by the pool for too long before I need to get up and get to doing something. So I think I'll probably just always be that way, really.
Okay. So are there any influences in your life from your childhood or any formative experiences that you think
my grandfather was a huge influencer in my life as a kid. I really looked up to him, and he used to be the caretaker at the no longer there, the Blue Line Drive-In down at West Beach. And so
I recall.
And so every weekend I would go down if we were staying over at my grandparents' place. They lived at Glenelg, and we grew up in Warradale, and I would go to work with him on a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning, where he was there cleaning up after the Friday night and Saturday night movies. So he taught me to drive. At the drive-in. All the odd loose coins and notes that you'd find that people dropped as you were walking up and down the rows with him cleaning up. He was just, and one of the things that he imparted a lot on me, but he'd always said to me, Stephen, and they never had a lot of money, but he'd always said to me, he was never without $1. And he just always said to me, if you can spend half and save half, you'll never have to worry about $1 going forward. So he said, it doesn't matter what you earn, but if you take that, and I type of have, that's type of how I've lived, and so I've never, he's had a lot of influence on me, and I just really looked up to him.
So no matter how much you earn, spend half,
save half.
Save half.
Yeah. And so we were, I probably took that a little bit to the extreme when we first started to, I suppose, get a bit of money into the business in terms of properties. So we started to purchase properties and invest in lots of different things, and to the point where I think I got to the point where I wasn't able to afford a utilities bill that came in because all the money that we were earning was going off into investments.
Well, the other thing is you need to adapt that a little bit for Australia's tax system, because, of course, it's earn half and then pay the other half to the tax man. It probably needs to be earn, tax, invest.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so
and somehow balance those three.
I think the other challenging. Talking about tax, and this is where you guys and Chris in particular have been fantastic for our business. We type of, when the GST came in, I type of buried my head in the sand because it was of no interest, but it just didn't float my boat at all. And so I type of didn't really think too much about it until I think we were maybe two returns down, and I came into Chris and he then went away and crunched all the numbers and came back to me, and I think we had a tax debt of, it was like $140,000 at the time, which I just went, we just don't even have that money in the bank. How the hell are we paying that off? So I made that mistake once, and my a bit like the concept of my grandfather giving me. Now every Monday, which is what I did before I came here, I sit down. 25% of what came in last week goes out into another account, and it just sits there, and it just grows and builds. And whenever there's a tax bill, there's the money there sitting there. It's not my money,
and it leaves a whole lot of stress.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And I think 25% covers everything. Covers your GST, it covers your PAY, and PAYG goes in on top of that as well. Covers your company tax, the whole lot. So So I made that mistake once. I won't make it again.
Well, you hopefully you learn from your mistakes.
That's the idea.
When GST came in, you wouldn't have been the only one who was doing that.
No, it wasn't good.
So business is going really well. Do you have some sort of vision for where you might want to get to, or are you just going to continue scratching that itch?
I think so. I think that's more so than setting, whether you're setting goals around, whether it be turnover or whatever. I think that it's for me, as long as the business is profitable, and there's and there's a growth aspect to it. So what that growth aspect looks like, I don't really know. I do know at the moment the growth aspect is definitely in the American market at the moment for me. So that's pretty much every day. That's what I'm doing, is working on that. And hopefully I can kick that goal and get it off to a stage where once again I can then put pillars in place to manage and maintain that, which will then enable me then to move on to the next part. So I enjoy being busy. I enjoy being active. My mind certainly enjoys being active, and I think the biggest thing is, which I try to pass on to my 3 kids as well. And I think their mother was the same. We have never really cared what they do, as long as they love what they do. So, and there are going to be aspects of even if you love it, that you still don't really like that much. But if you can get out of bed every morning and go, I still love what I do. That to me is more important than say still you've got to pay bills and put food on the table, but that to me is the most important part, because I know plenty of people that are miserable going to work every day, and that for me has always been. I've always been, I suppose, blessed that the fact that I can get out of it. I've never got out of bed in the morning and gone, God, here we go again. I've always got out of bed in the morning and gone, right,
what's on today? I'm
looking forward to this Zoom. I'm going to talk to someone that I've never spoken to, who's halfway across the other side of the world, and is interested in something that we've developed over 30 years.
Well, Stephen Evans, it's an incredible story, really. I mean, you've got so much exciting stuff to come, it sounds like to me. But to start as a dance teacher, not the most fashionable thing in the world, let's be honest.
Especially going to Sacred Heart, it wasn't.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Football school.
Correct.
Gee whiz. Yeah. So to start there, to say, well, actually, I don't have enough money to buy a house, and then to develop a business for which there was no market at the time is an outstanding achievement. So well done. It's been great to talk to you this morning, and there's been a lot of really, really interesting insights.
Yeah, brilliant.
Which is perfect. So thanks for the chat, and good luck in the future.
And thanks for not only your support, but Harrison Orchard and Chris Marshall in particular for their support over. Chris has been with us for 25 years. He's a part of the family, really, and we couldn't have done half of what we've done in terms of expansion and systems and structure without your advice. So thank you. Well,
the joy in our job is working with businesses like yours, and you really do feel an attachment, and so you sort of ride the wave with those businesses, and to have a business like yours that's gone so well and done so many significant things is a pleasure for us. So pat each other on the back.
Fantastic.
Well done. Thank you.